Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now, you know, when it is Friday, it is Disruptive Friday. I have with me three great minds in the local tech startup scene. But before I engage them, let's talk about matters devolution. As the 8th Devolution Conference concluded, a prevailing theme emerged, and that is innovation and technology, which took center stage among the exhibitors. Our team spotlighted remarkable exhibitions that left a lasting impression. Let's begin by exploring an intriguing case where an innovative college from Makueni demonstrated an innovation that uses AI and technology to revolutionize farm irrigation. Have a look.
My name is Samuel Kinyanjui. I'm the Managing Director of Water Kiosk Limited. Water Kiosk is a company that is registered in Kenya doing solar water desalination. I have a background in mechanical engineering, and as we talk about innovation, I feel very much placed and happy to discuss about this critical topic. As a company, we are into the design, manufacture, and installation of solar water desalination systems that.
Well, as the 8th Devolution Conference concluded, as I mentioned, prevailing theme emerged, and that is of innovation and technology, which took center stage. And among the greatest exhibitors at the conference was one team that had AI, or rather showcased how AI can be used in irrigation. Have a look.
I'm Enoch Nzioka. I'm from Kitui County, Southeastern Kenya University. I'm still a student there. I have come up with an innovation that uses artificial intelligence to run the farm. It uses sensors, actuators, and cameras to run the farm. The camera looks for pests and diseases in the farm, and it notifies you through SMS, calls, or WhatsApp. I've connected it with the API from Safaricom, so anyone with any type of phone can use it. It can be activated using the phone, using SMS, and it's also automated. It has the sensors in the soil that help in regulating the water. The sensors look at the level of water in the farm, and according to the plant from the camera view, it regulates the water. The system is different from the others because it uses artificial intelligence, which is an...
Well, that is the latest from the 8th Devolution Conference that was recently, or rather the one that is currently, the curtains are currently coming down on it as we speak right now in Uasin Gishu County and in Eldoret, to be specific. But now in studio, I have with me, as I said, three great minds in the local tech and startup scene. On my left is Rebecca Majiwa, who's the founder of Strategic Executive Assistant Africa. Welcome to the studio. On my immediate right, of course, is Muliande Alex. Muliande Alex, I got that right?
Yes, you got it right.
Yes, who's the founder and CEO of Edu Online. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you.
And of course, last but not least, the Chief Officer, Digital Economy and Startups, Nairobi City County Government, Victor Agola. Welcome to the studio.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now, before we go to the solutions, I understand Nairobi City County Government has a very innovative solution to bring together investors and inventors. But before we go to the solutions, I want us first to focus on the problems. And I'll start with you, Majiwa. As the founder of Strategic Executive Assistant Africa, what are some of the challenges that you've had to go through to get where you are right now as a startup?
Okay, so thank you very much for having us here. Thank you for having me here. As a founder of the Strategic Executive Assistant Africa, the main challenges that I could say that we went through, or I went through, is a sustainability plan. Everyone, for you to have an investor who will put their money into your idea. You know, when you're founding, when you're getting to start up something, you're the one who has a vision and a mission for it. So you're the one who understands where you want to get at the end of the day. So for you to get someone who is willing to invest their money into something that they don't know where it's going to go to. So they're looking at a sustainability plan, they're looking at a revenue growth plan. So it's very difficult for you to get people into the same vision as you are in. So this is really like a struggle to get financial support, especially where you have to get people into the same vision as yourself.
So very briefly, what is your innovation and what problem is it currently solving?
So currently what I looked at, there was a gap in the market in terms of, for the strategic executive assistant, we formed an organization where we can bring together administrative professionals to be able to showcase what they do in the market. You know, most of the times in organizations, we have people working in the background. So most people have been asking me, who are administrative professionals? So these are the core people who support the organization, but from the background. So we have the secretaries, we have the, when you get into the organization, you meet the person at the front office desk, you know, and then we have the executive assistants, we have the PAs, we have the chiefs of staff, even in government, and all these people do not know, they don't have a clear growth path or a clear defined way of where they're going to grow into. And all these people can also grow into different ventures in different organizations because they deal with the top executives who are in different fields and different markets. So the lapse where we saw a gap where people do not know how to venture into different professions from this administrative profession. So this is why we ventured into starting the strategic executive assistant platform and organization.
All right, thank you. Muliange, you are in the edtech scene. There are a lot of startups, education startups. What problem exactly are you solving with your startup?
Thank you, Eric, for hosting me on the show. So basically, as you correctly mentioned, that the EdTech, of course, has various and very many people trying to solve the very many difficulties within that ecosystem. But what we looked at is there was a lack. Okay, let me just roll back. The education sector has three key stakeholders: the learner, the parent, and the schools. So most of the solutions that are available currently do not actually solve the problems for these stakeholders all at once. You'd find for each of the stakeholders, should you require a solution, you will need to have like different providers as standalones. So what we did is we are trying to merge all these solutions into one platform. And that's why we came up with www.eduonline.co.ke. That one gives learners access to the school content that they need. Two, gives parents a platform where they can be able to monitor and just track how their children are just learning while online. So again, you find for the parent is a very useful tool for you to be able to make important decisions regarding your child. And then for the schools, we are giving them solutions to just be able to now manage the entire ecosystem. For example, all the way from a digital directory where schools can be able to publish their profiles online, which makes it easy for them to reach big audiences. Yeah.
Have you managed to attract interest from potential investors, and how has that gone?
Yeah, we of course again, if you have something very nice, again people want to to work with you. So yes, we are having conversations with various people, various stakeholders, and I think you mentioned about the Nairobi Tech Week, which was also a very important. We were part of the exhibition, which actually also opened us up to a lot of potential partners. Yes.
Are you sure you've not talked to Victor Agola to try it?
Actually, I was surprised that he was at the exhibition at the just concluded Tech Week.
Awesome. So let's talk about this deal room, the innovative idea that the city county government of Nairobi came up with to link up investors with inventors. How does it work?
Maybe just to take a bird's eye view, because the deal rooms that we had at the Innovate Nairobi Tech Week is part of a bigger program that we have at the county government. And the bigger question that someone would ask is, what are we doing to be able to support startups and innovators generally? In Kenya, we have a big challenge of poverty, over 30%, at least in Nairobi County. We have over 1 million young graduates who are entering the labor market. It's projected to 1 million for the next 5 years. That's close to 5 million. Sorry. And of course, looking at the SMEs, the traditional SMEs really are doing their best in terms of supporting socioeconomic development in the country, but they're not able to do that. So looking at startups and innovators, and generally the innovation ecosystem, we hypothesize and believe that if well supported, then probably we can be able to absorb and create economic opportunities, not only for themselves, but also create employment for others. So that's the reason why we, the sector that I had was created, and looking at ways in which we can be able to support. So funding is one of the areas that needs to be looked at critically. If you look at Kenya generally, we attract around 17% of total VC money that is coming into Africa. But again, if you look at critically at these numbers, you'll see there's a leaning towards fintech. So whenever we talk about startups, we don't see other sectors attracting as such. And for us to be able to grow the ecosystem, it means we need to be able to diversify and support startups from across different sectors. And that's the reason why focusing on funding is critical. And the way we are looking at it is in two ways. Number one is looking at catalyzing corporate VC. So a lot of funding that comes to Kenya and Africa is what we are calling institutional VCs. So these are investors who are sitting in the global north, either in the US, Europe, who are looking to invest to different startups. Of course, that money either comes with bias or is highly competitive. So it means that they can only be able to invest in certain areas. But if you look at Kenya generally, is the sector that he is in, we have stakeholders within education. We have stakeholders in software as a service. We have a lot of corporates who have money who can be able to invest in startups. So that's one area that we're looking out for, to be able to catalyze and ensure that we are able to support local corporates to invest. But specifically to your question around deal rooms is we held our first Innovate Nairobi Technology Week, which was just a platform for different stakeholders within the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, to come, have conversations, co-create policy, etc. But one of the value propositions that we put out for startups is not only for them to exhibit and meet partners, but also ability to be able to link up with potential investors. So what we did is we made a public call for startups to come exhibit, and we were able to create a deal book through our partners. And it is through this deal book that startups were coming and saying, what, we are looking for funding, and we were linking them up with investors. So conversations were happening around investments.
Well, and you've mentioned something very important. You said that a lot of investors, and especially in Africa, they have a keen interest on fintech. And I just wanted to know, will the county government have some bias of its own? Because I saw during the Innovate Nairobi week, the startups that exhibited there, they were wide-ranging. Will you have some bias moving forward?
Like I said, the KPI that I have as an officer in the county is to create jobs. And of course, by supporting the innovation of startup ecosystem. So there is no incentive for me to be biased. What we are trying to do is to catalyze and organize the ecosystem and ensure that value is created across board. So what we are working with startups across all sectors. I think in the next couple of months we'll be launching a self-register database for startups, where startups can be able to register at the Innovate Nairobi portal. We can be able to classify them into different sectors, different stages, and of course then investors can just easily come and part of the challenge that even investors have as they come to Kenya is the sheer lack of information. Every other day you hear of a new startup coming through, you hear someone has been here for 3-4 years and no one has been able to invest in him. So the database we want to create is a self-registered database. Investors can directly reach out to startups for them to have conversations around investment. So there is absolutely no bias. We hope that we can be able to support startups across all sectors.
Well, Majiwa, have you managed to secure grants or funding before, and how has the process been like?
Okay, so we haven't managed to go into grants and sourcing of funding, because this is really like a new startup that we just came up with. And we've been thinking, most investors want at least to see, as I had said before, a revenue growth plan. So it's really hard to convince someone to invest their money before they can see the growth plan. And as I was just listening to him, and I was thinking, the county government is ready to support startups, but we are in the AI era right now, artificial intelligence, right? So, for example, for our startup, where we are dealing with administrative professionals who are people who are dealing with really mostly manual work, and I'm sure that's what people take this executive assistant role to be as. But as it grows and as the era of AI checks in, I'm just thinking, what is the plan in terms of making people creating the awareness that AI is not coming to replace jobs, especially for these people who are handling much manual work. And for us guys who are doing startups, for guys who are doing more manual work, what's the plan? Is there like a plan in place where you'll have some training on AI? Of course, we know like right now for even executive assistants, we're using a lot of AI in the industry. We're using some things like Calendly. You might not know about it, but I'm sure guys in the industry do. So what's the plan and what's the relevance of that? But to answer to your question, we have not really gone into funding, looking for funding. Mostly we've done it by ourselves, which is really difficult for a startup. But for you to make people believe in your idea, you have to believe in your own idea, and you have to invest in your own idea. So before I come to you and convince you to put in some money into my idea, you need to see that there's some source of revenue that I'm generating from my own plan. Yeah. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Well, it does. Muliande, you also have a disruptive idea. Are you open to collaboration with investors? And this is beyond funding, maybe mentorship and guidance.
Oh yes, we are definitely open to collaboration, because at a case in point during the Innovate Nairobi, there are many people who approached us, of course, them also offering something that we don't offer, and they were like, this is what we have. For instance, there was an innovation that can be able to bring AI into what we do in terms of predictive learning, where the AI can be able to predict what the learner needs to learn, and then because you already have the material, that material is available to the learners. So I think to answer your question is yes, and again, it is through partnerships we are able to expand our capacities and capabilities. So of course, yes, we are open.
Emajua, back to you. I have a question that is also tied to what I'm about to ask the Chief Officer of Digital Economy and Startups at the Nairobi City County Government. Do you have intellectual property protection for your idea, trademarks, copyrights, and such?
Okay, yes, we do, because you can see that in the market, there's always a lot of ideas around the same thing as what you're launching. You're not the only one who is thinking of this same idea. Everyone comes up with this idea. We have a lot of platforms that are dealing with executive assistants currently, not only on LinkedIn. Like if you look around, you'll find professional bodies that are trying to support administrative professionals, but you're trying to stand out. So you definitely have to have some trademark, you definitely have to protect your brand in some way. But most importantly, as much as you're protecting your brand through trademarks and all that, you need to stand out and show why your brand is different from anyone else's, why the skills is different, or what you're bringing to the investor or to the market that's different from your competitors. Yeah, so we definitely do.
Victor, the reason why I'm saying that question is tied to the one that I'm about to ask you is because I want you to take us through the process that the deal room will use from idea inception all the way to connecting the inventor and the investor. And then we talk about copyright. So you have brought two people on the table and they do not end up agreeing on a few things. Then one ends up breaching the contract. How are you going to protect or rather avoid such from happening?
Like I said, I think the deal room that we had at Innovate Nairobi is part of a bigger program around funding. And our leaning currently is towards linking corporates to startups. The journey that she takes probably is not the journey for everyone. And part of the frustrations that we see with a lot of startups, fundraising, from outside the continent is, it's very rigorous. The investors are also very focused on certain sectors. So what ends up happening is you miss the chance to be able to get money from institutional VCs. So that's one. So we are trying to be able to link local investors with startups. So that's something that is very big. So
just local investors, no foreign investors.
Foreign investment is happening anyway.
Okay.
So what we are saying is, if you look at data, the investment is leaning towards fintech.
Okay.
So startups in education, startups in agtech, startups who are doing software as a service don't get the same opportunity as someone who is in fintech. So what we are saying is, for us to be able to catalyze investment, we need to change focus and focus on locals. Just to answer your question around IP, the way we are looking at it is in a systematic way. So we want to be able to decentralize the resources that are needed for startups to be able to do better, or entrepreneurs to be able to play in the digital economy. How are we doing that? We want to be able to have spaces or resources decentralized to wards. In Nairobi, we have 85 wards. So we want to be able to have, just like the way you can have a library, where a young person can just walk in, it's closer to home, they can come, read books, and of course expand their knowledge. So the same concept we want to be able to do for spaces. If you don't have an office space, that space can act as an office. Yeah, you can be able to access internet. You can be able to get capacity building in terms of training. You can be able to have conversations around funding, and most importantly, you can have a conversation around IP. So as you come to this space, IP is not a question of just applying. It's just knowing what is patentable, what is IP. So people assume that just because you have an idea, it means that you need to rush and protect that idea. Sometimes you realize that it's not even something that is novel. So we can be able to use that platform of an incubation space to have conversations around IP. And whenever a corporate or someone wants to be able to interact with startups or innovators within our spaces, we can be able to give them the balance so that they are not exploited, so that they know what their rights are if they are doing a hackathon or they are participating in some form of competition. They should be able to know that these are the terms and rules that are playing within this platform. So if, say for example, a startup decides to say, I want to sell the idea, well and good. They should be able to know exactly that. But if not, then they can say, okay, well, I don't want to sell this idea, then where does this IP fall? So we are coming as county government and saying the incubation spaces that we have can be safe spaces where both corporates, institutional investors, or any other partner can come to play, but an innovator or a startup will not be exploited.
Victor, I have a very burning question.
Yes.
We've seen some funny startups. I'd call them funny, and I won't mention names, but you know them, and everyone here who's the local tech startups knows. We've seen funny startups coming up, and they get funding to the tune of billions and then end up closing shop in a few months. And at the risk of sounding like a gossiper, it's out there. That's what Kenyans say. Kenyans have said that could probably be an avenue of money laundering. Our country does not have really, really strong anti-money laundering laws. Will you be vetting the investors who want to put their money on legit businesses?
Like I said, our leaning is towards local corporate VC. So this technically means these are your listed companies or companies that operate in Kenya, whether they're in education, whether they're even CSOs or civil society organizations that are in health or whatever. What we are saying is we want to be able to direct that type of funding towards innovators. And I think Kenya generally is a market-driven economy. So what we can do is link investors with startups with the assumption that, of course, different agencies are there to vet to ensure that an investor that is coming to Kenya is someone who is legitimate, who is duly registered and can be able to engage in business in Kenya. So I don't think we can be able, as a county government, go and start doing KYC for all investors. There are different agencies in government that that's their sole mandate to ensure that money coming in through, say for example, through a bank account, it's something that has gone through KYC, and some of these issues have been vetted. So I don't see a risk. We've not had a case as such a case. In terms of money laundering within the startup ecosystem. What we've seen actually is maybe founders who maybe are coming from whichever country, who come and don't necessarily have a sound business model, but have succeeded in the game of being able to fundraise better. So it gives the impression that they are getting money and they don't have skin in the game, as opposed to, let's say, for example, your local startups. And like I said, the way we are approaching the market or the ecosystem is not to copy Silicon Valley or any other ecosystem, is to ask ourselves what can work for Kenya. How can we be able to practically support startups? So if I promise you that I'm going to get you money from India or any other country, I would be lying. But what I know is, if we're able to work with local corporates and convince them that we can be able to offer them value. You can't just say one freebies. There's no free lunch. Yes. We need to be able to sit down and say, look at the solution that he has in education, look at the solution that she has, and sit down with local corporates and ask, is this something that is valuable, and how can we be able to create value and have a win-win kind of a situation?
I see Majiwa nodding in approval.
Yeah.
Majiwa, as someone who loses sleep over KPIs that you have set for yourself, how can such an idea, the deal room, how can such an idea be made better?
Okay, first of all, I really like your idea in terms of the fact that you're trying to link us up with the corporates and just see where we can come in. Personally, as the Strategic Executive Assistant Africa, we are really a very functional area in the corporate world in terms of the fact that each corporate needs administrative professionals in there. So I don't know if you get my point, but I think you do. So in each corporate, there's every function of the corporate has an administrative professional in it. When you enter an organization, the first person you meet in there, at the reception, that's a professional who is an administrative professional. When you want to see the boss, the first person you'll meet is a PA. When you want to get into the strategy of the organization, there's a strategic business manager. Yeah, so I'm really glad about this model and where it's going, your idea of it and how it's linking up to the corporates. So to come back to your question, you've asked how we can make it better. Yes. So maybe we need more visibility, I guess, in terms of county government can give us more visibility because in the government, there's chiefs of staff. Chiefs of staff generate from administrative professionals. That's how they grow into the chiefs of staff. These are people who manage the day-to-day activities of the government, right? So we need more visibility, and we also just need more support in terms of course, growing the profession and making it something that is, we have medical professional boards, we have lawyers associations. Do we have an administrative professionals association in Kenya? I don't think we do. I don't think we do. So these are some of the things that the county government can help us in, just making us more visible in terms of the collaboration with the government.
And as you can see, I think like I mentioned, part of my mandate is to be able to brand and create visibility for the entire ecosystem. Because the beauty is, the more you're able to brand the ecosystem, the more you can be able to get different startups in different sectors getting visibility. So that's the reason why I said we want to be able to launch a self-registered database for startups, where you can be able to query and ask whether you are looking for partnerships, whether you are an investor, you can be able to query the database and ask, I want to invest in, for example, in software as a service. They can be able to access that without my intervention. They can probably reach out to you quite quickly. In terms of branding, again, we are, through, of course, Innovate Nairobi as a platform to be able to showcase different startups. Whenever we have even delegations of different embassies coming to Nairobi, we've been able to showcase, based on their interest, different startups that they would want to engage. So, of course, getting this type of feedback is also very important to us, which enables us to be very agile and to be able to, ensure that we're able to improve the, the offering and the value that we give to startups in Kenya.
Well, Muliande, you attended Innovate Nairobi, and the chief Officer of Digital Economy and Startups, is here. He's listening. I can see him taking notes. What do you think can be done to ensure that Muliande here and a potential investor can work together without and eliminate the bottlenecks between investing on ideas and having the real idea, break even in a few years?
Okay, so I think I'd first want to start by saying thank you to Victor for what they did, but go beyond and say after doing that there are also some other, let me say, criteria. Before you go to Innovate Nairobi, there's a criteria. If there wasn't a criteria, basically we would get 101 or whatever unlimited number of people showcasing what they do. So I think also in terms of the criteria should actually be very accommodative for other people who might maybe not have, because let me not go into it a lot.
It's a conversation.
But I think the criteria should actually be accommodative, so that most people can actually get that opportunity for them to be able to showcase what they do. And it's only at Nairobi Innovate or related avenues where we can be able to meet these investors. Having said that, also is they need to increase the base and the frequency of these events, because if something happens today and then you wait maybe 3, 4, 5 months later for something else to happen, that also kills the zeal and the emotion that you had set in.
Yes.
So I think the frequency also would actually make sense for people like us. Not just for exposure, but also to train and get ourselves better. Because if you present 101 times, you get better. If you only present once and then wait again, even the experience that you had gained in your first presentation, fades away. Okay. So I think also the frequency is something that they can also look at as well.
So back to you, Victor. Muliande is talking about some criteria. Was there some prerequisite before startup founders could participate?
So the way we had designed the Tech Week was for partners to be able to do the KYC for us for startups. Anyone can come and wake up and say, I'm a startup. Then, of course, what they do is they take resources, time and space that would have been used with a valid startup. So what we did is, based on the different tracks that we had conveners who are basically ecosystem players who would vouch and say, and for example, he came through Kayana Creative, who was a women-led space that vouched for them. So around health, we had Vilgro, around different getting the pipeline from stakeholders. So that's the approach that we took, so that we don't have to vet every single person who is coming. So of course, in terms of who gets into deal rooms, it's a question of the preference of the investor. So like I said, what we did is we made a public call over and above the startups that we got, is we made a public call for startups to apply to exhibit. So once you were able to pay for exhibition, then you stood a chance to get into a deal room. So what we did is we gave a survey and asked, what type of funding do you need? What type of investors do you need? Which sectors? Just quite a bit of details around the same. Then we presented this deal book to investors. So it's not for Victor to decide whether you're going to be invested or not. It depends with how prepared or even the preference of the investor. So it's not all that got the opportunity to be able to get into a deal room or into a conversation with an investor. Just to answer his second question is, Innovate Nairobi is not just an event, it's part of a bigger program that we have around the county. So we have different issues that we address. We are addressing issues around policy. How do we ensure that we have effective policy that allows for innovation to happen? Looking at issues around funding, which I think we've talked about. Looking at issues around capacity. So at the heart or foundational to any startup is programmers, is people who do the coding. Yes. How can we be able to build capacity around the same? I mean, there are very different layers that we are trying to address, as county government, to ensure that the ecosystem works. In terms of frequency, like I said, I think what we wanted, the outcome for the Innovate Week was for us to be able to have relevant programs that can be able to support innovators and startups, which is linked to the incubation centers that we propose to have. So we want to be able to have incubation centers that are arranged per sector, so that we can have education and have all startups in education virtually registered under a center. You don't have to physically go there, but under a database we have all startups within education. Then link them up with corporates who are operating within that value chain. So that what that happens is we're able to have frequent conversations that we can come and evaluate next year during the Tech Week. So that we use the Tech Week as an evaluation platform rather than just an event for showcasing. So that we can come and say, we promised you last year, we are going to work with you for you to get opportunities within the county or increase your revenue. Then we can now come and say, did we achieve it or not, probably next year.
Well, Maju, in the interest of time, what are your closing remarks?
Sorry?
What are your closing remarks as a person who is in the software as a service industry?
Yeah, so my closing remarks would be, first of all, when you're coming up with a startup, it's very important to try and minimize your excitement. You know, most of the time when you come up with an idea, a business idea, most of the times we are very excited. We don't look at the long term. So we don't plan ahead. So it's really important to look ahead, try and see your sustainability plan, have a growth plan, because if you cannot be able to sustain your business, then no one is going to have belief in your business. No one is going to invest in your business. Another thing, we are in the era of artificial intelligence. So in whichever field you're in, you need to look at how you can be able to use tech more and not just physically do things, you know. So this is very important for us all.
All right. Muliade, over to you.
So again, I think I could have several closing remarks.
I'll allow you only one.
Only one. Okay. So I think I would really want to encourage innovators out there. The problems are countless, and I think at the beginning of the show you said there are very many edtechs, and no matter how many they are not been able to solve all the problems within the the education ecosystem. So I would want to encourage all of us to get to the table, innovate whatever we can, and then also now the consumers, let us have an open mind. Let us trust these innovators that are bringing in new solutions, that they will care, that they care about us, and that the solutions actually are out to make our lives better.
All right.
Yes.
And Victor, what kind of message would you like to convey to investors and inventors in a minute or less, to investors or inventors who want to engage you?
I think as the Nairobi County government, we are very open to feedback. We are open to coming to City Hall, giving us feedback for us to be able to improve the value proposition that we give to the ecosystem. I mean, that is our basic rallying call. But I think for startups, I think for me, the rallying call would be to do research and have very solid business models. Entrepreneurship is not romance. It is business like any other venture. You need to be able to have solid business plans. You need to be able to have solid business models that can give you revenue before we even start talking about fundraising.
Well, thank you very much, Victor Agola, the Chief Officer of Digital Economy and Startups at the Nairobi City County Government. Asante sana.
Thank you for having me.